Tom's assessment, we've got, yay! We've got two sides of the divide here, if we say that right.
Some may say the better side.
We've got Mr McCurdy, who represents who's Catholic.
Yes.
We've got Mr Bateman, who's Protestant. Both grew up in Northern Ireland and both are really happy. They're going to give you a little introduction about themselves, a bit of context, and they're both really, really happy then to take your questions.
Lads,
okay,
listen.
about growing up in the island that you are learning about at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to sweep over here.
Well, you're the ones always moving, so you can start.
Right, okay, I'm Mr McCurdy, and I'm obviously from Northern Ireland, and I'm Catholic, alright? So we're on the Green Party, we're the Green side. While you're eating all your wee Jaffa cakes, that was because Mr Bateman asked for Jaffa cakes.
The orange biscuit.
So are you aware that are you aware that Catholics would call the Protestants orange because of the Orange Order, then being orange men? Is this a new concept?
No, we did that today, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay, so that's something you know right now.
Okay.
So this is Mr Bateman, you can introduce himself.
So I'm Mr. Bateman. Good Protestant name, so you can kind of start hearing kind of differences between McCurdy, Bateman, names like that. They're kind of different. I'm choking on something.
Choke on the orange.
Yeah.
Ironic.
Oh, they're not so I grew up in Northern Ireland, went to a grammar school, which at the age of 11 you sit at an exam that basically decides if you go to secondary school or grammar school. You don't pay, but you get put in with people that pass the 11 plus, we call it. I would say when I went to grammar school, my school was 97% Protestant, and that is not, it's not a Protestant only school, but it's just the way things have worked out. So I grew up going to a very Protestant school, but born into a very open-minded family, and a lot of friends who are Catholic, apart from this.
Well, obviously he's went through his education, so I was born and raised Catholic, went to Catholic primary school, St Patrick's and St Bridget's, it's in the name. Then I went to a Catholic secondary school, which was across the road, across from Passion College, where I was taught by nuns. We were all Catholic, there were no other religion was taught in the school. So yeah, very secular. Every half term we'd go and we'd have masses, so it was a huge focus on your religion as I was growing up. Every Sunday you would go to mass, you know, to your mommy and daddy and the rest of them. So it's, yeah, where I come from, I'm from a small town, it's called Ballycastle. It's on the north coast. Now the area surrounding Ballycastle, do we have a pen to board? No?
There's probably one in the drawer, so if you open up the top drawer.
A wee diagram on the list for.
Yeah.
So, my crop diagram.
Sorry, I didn't think you'd say that.
So, right there we go, that's kind of Northern Ireland. You think I know that? So I'm from up here, right on the north coast. That's Ballycastle, alright?
It's quite a nice place, actually.
Very touristy. All these ones from around his neck of the woods all have holiday homes up around Ballycastle. But around this area you have kind of County Antrim. So Belfast is in around here. So County Antrim would be predominantly Protestant. Whenever I pass through like my neighbouring towns, which are dotted around about here, you're driving through places which have red, white and blue curbs. They paint their curbs. They fly Union Jacks just the whole year.
The whole way through, as you drive through, all the curbs, red, white and blue, Union Jacks, and then you can leave that estate and drive through another, and then all the curbs will be green, white and gold with Irish tricolor flags, literally from estate to estate. Not every area, but when you, more kind of working class areas, you'll find have a lot more sectarian kind of murals and stuff on the walls. You see the big things painted on the walls. You get quite a lot of that in various housing estates as well.
So obviously, Ballycastle is very mixed, so we wouldn't really necessarily fly flags or paint our curves, but round us, all the other towns and villages do. So you would know a Catholic, more predominantly Catholic area, because they'd be playing their Gaelic sports. Have you heard of hurling? Where you have a stick and you're on and you hit the hurl.
Imagine hockey at head height. It is literally hockey at head height.
It's kind of like this. That's a stick there. Okay. Obviously, a good bit bigger. It's about that height down to the floor. It's very fast paced. It's a lot of energy. So yeah, we play Gaelic football. Don't know if you've ever heard of Gaelic football.
It's like football with lots of handballs.
Basically, you can run. You can pick the ball, run with it, kick it. But you only have so many steps when you've got it in your hand. You've got goalposts like on a rugby pitch. Similar goal, you get points and stuff like that. So like you can tell somebody's religion, who they are, by what sport they might play as well. At school, for PE, we predominantly play hurling or Gaelic football. We didn't play your normal football.
Whereas we wouldn't have played any of that, only rugby, cricket,
Hockey.
hockey.
Turn it off, Ollie.
Not a sensible way to play football.
So where Mr Bateman's from as well,
Lads.
you're from Moira,
Well, yeah, but
thereabouts.
I went to school in Lisburn, which is a very promising school. So where I was from was a nice little village, but when I was growing up, my school was in Lisburn, which is kind of, it's now a city, okay, it's about 25 miles from Belfast. And when I was going to school, various things happened, and what happens is you end up and you fall in with the wrong crowd. And I had my whole eyes woken up to what still goes on in Northern Ireland. So what some people I know back home, what they used to be in when they were younger, is the paramilitary groups like the UDA, the USF, the Irish side, the IRA, and the provisional IRA. What they do is they get children your age, okay, right about your age,
And younger.
and they'll, if those children are getting in fights or anything, they'll be like, oh well, if you hang with us, we'll look after you. So what they'll do is they'll try and convince the children that they want to join these groups in order to be protected, and if they ever get hit by anybody from another estate, you're sorted because you're with that group. So a lot of people that I started to know were in like junior versions of paramilitary groups. So the Ulster Young Militants.
Were you in one, sir?
No. And that's the greatest thing that I ever did, was to not get involved, because what happens then is once they sign you up as a young person, they then swear you in, and that's you for life until you can pay to get out of it, basically. You either pay to get out or you're in it for life. So I know a guy that's had to pay.
Or there is the third option.
Oh, well, I didn't leave the country. No, sorry, yeah, so it's quite scary stuff, but that's how it starts. They get you in by being like, oh, we'll look after you. There's lots of fun, kind of skirmishes go on between the same religion but the different paramilitaries. So, for instance, the UDA, the Ulster Defence Association, would have like little kind of arguments and turf wars with the LVF or the UVF. So even people on the same side kind of have conflicts with each other, and it's mainly based around kind of, it's getting towards drugs now.
Yeah.
But even, it's a lot of narrow-minded people involved in these organisations, and I don't think they have much else to do. So,
I think if you look at it now, especially with the way the economic situation is at the moment, kind of mirrors what happened, 30, 40 years ago, where there was a similar, if not was it quite similar, the economic downturn. People were unemployed, had no money. So it's kind of mirrored
This
now.
one's worse, isn't it? This recession's worse.
Yeah. But because so many people are unemployed, don't have a lot of money to spend, they have too much time in their hands. They seem to be just putting all their energies into starting up more conflict.
And that's why did you see on the news about the flag being taken down off City Hall? and they all rioted because they're no longer flying the British flag. It's mainly, it's the young ones coming through again, whereas after the Good Friday Agreement, you're all studying that, are you? So for about, I don't know, certainly the last kind of 7 or 8 years, Northern Ireland's been quite a peaceful place, a nice place to go, but just recently I think the young ones with nothing to do, it's starting to creep back up again, and those old tensions are starting to come back through.
As we say, it's kind of in the breeding, so it's being handed down from grandparents, parents, it's being distilled now into the younger generation, and they're having these grievances against the other side for things that they don't really fully understand. What we find is a lot of people have this attitude that they want to get out and get revenge, or get fight for their side, but they don't actually know why or where it all started. They're just going on what, say, their parents have passed down to them, said, well, we don't like Catholics, so you don't like Catholics. And that's how it's feeding the next generation on no real concrete basis.
But it's very, very, it's a really big deal in certain areas, and then other parts of Northern Ireland, Catholics and Protestants live side by side. There's no issue. The schools are quite mixed. Your friendship groups are quite mixed. But in other areas, you will literally find giant walls dividing one side of a road to another. So like the Shankill and the Falls have this giant wall just separating these two estates. So if you were a ranger stop and you walked on the wrong side, well, you're brave if you've done that, brave or stupid. But it's not something that, if you're not involved in it, it's not going to impact in your life. However, when I started hanging about in Lisburn with certain groups, I realised how big a part of people's lives it is. Everything they do is surrounding, we need to build this bonfire for bonfire night, so they'll start about a month ahead, getting pallets and crates, and they'll build something maybe 2-3 times the height of this school. We're talking, like, if Miss can put it up at some point, we're talking, if it falls over, it's going to kill a lot of people. These things are ginormous. They go round, they deliver magazines, like supporting the paramilitary group, and the young ones will go round and collect the money for the magazines. And it's just bred through from a young age that they get pulled into this kind of gang paramilitary lifestyle, and they get almost indoctrinized, or intoxicated into believing it's all true, when really they don't know the first step.
It's quite strange, because we would know people, and maybe even be related to people, who would take quite a strong stance on their views. Like, I would have relations who would be very nationalist, very maintain that attitude, whereas I'd be quite liberal, so it doesn't mean anything to me, I just want to go on with my life. But John was saying himself, he would know people who just want to just have this grievance. It's just this thing that doesn't go away.
Ironically, last week I was at a family wedding, and the family's all Protestants, apart from one auntie married a Catholic fellow, my uncle. I know, shock horror. And my cousin Connor O'Hara, so again you can see
Catholic
name, is the most staunchly nationalist Republican person I've ever met. Yet he's from a Protestant family, and it's just his dad's side in the area he got brought up in. So yeah, that's kind of what Northern Ireland's like. It's a nice place to go if you're not involved in that kind of element of it.
I remember when I was younger, in the 80s, I was young, and I remember we were driving, and this was about the time I think Jerry Adams was coming onto the scene, and people were stopping cars up around Derry, or Londonderry, you might call it.
London. That's the official term.
It's Derry, including Londonderry, it's okay. Don't listen to Mr Bateman. And they would stop, these paramilitary groups would stop your car to see who was in it and see who you were, what side you were on. That was quite intimidating.
It's where my school was. I was playing rugby. They blew up the barracks next to me while we were playing rugby. a 60-pound car bomb, so we got rained with shrapnel.